This week, the troubled chipmaker Intel announced that their CEO, Pat Gelsinger, has resigned. With his departure, there are a lot of questions about Intel's long-term strategy. For decades, Intel was the biggest chipmaker in the world and foundry, powering almost all high-end data centers and computers. Yes, like those Intel Inside videos. But without competition, Intel grew overconfident and missed the mark on several important milestones. Apple used to be one of Intel's largest clients, but with the launch of Apple Silicon, they became the clients of TSMC instead. Intel is one of the 3 companies that fabricate cutting-edge chips alongside Samsung and TSMC. Companies like Nvidia, AMD, Amazon, and Meta all design chips, but they contract companies like TSMC to manufacture them. Intel, on the other hand, has everything vertically integrated. When they were in the lead, that worked great for them. They got to keep most of the advanced processors for themselves, saved money on manufacturing, and were able to reinvest into their foundry business. But when demand for Intel's products dropped in favor of TSMC's clients like AMD or Nvidia, vertical integration became a hindrance. As Intel hit more and more roadblocks, they lost their edge compared to TSMC, whose fab capacity is fully booked now, years in advance. In 2021, Pat Gelsinger came in, promising to spin off Intel's fab business so that other companies could use their foundry services, just like TSMC. He initiated the process for construction of fabs around the world, from Asia, Europe, and the US, and it was a breath of fresh air for a company that had, for so long, felt like it was stagnating. But very quickly, Pat Gelsinger faced the same problems that Intel has faced for a very long time. Despite securing billions in funding from the EU and the US, Intel's foundry business had fallen behind TSMC's, and the new fabs faced delays. Not only that, but part of the requirements that came with all that funding from the US CHIPS Act was that Intel would not be allowed to sell off its foundry business entirely. Wait, why is that important? Well, if Intel processors and Intel Foundry remain under the same control, it makes it very difficult for them to pitch a competitor like AMD to come to manufacture their processors at Intel's fabs. An independent company like TSMC, who is not a competitor, would be much safer in terms of what AMD would think than going to manufacture and give money to their competitor. Couple that with the fact that Intel's fabs are not super attractive or cutting edge, and that part of Pat Gelsinger's plan kind of fell through. That's bad, right? Yeah, these short-term risks were part of Gelsinger's plan when he took over. Developing new chips and fabs takes several years at minimum, and it's natural that Intel would take a long time to turn around. So why is Gelsinger leaving if this was all part of his plan? Well, since he took office, that's not all that's been happening. AI has taken over the tech world. As Nvidia became the most valuable company in the world last year, the spotlight was put on Intel and its lackluster AI products compared to Nvidia's $3 trillion valuation. Intel's $103 billion valuation feels almost small. So is Pat Gelsinger responsible for how poorly Intel has done recently? Well, probably not. As I said earlier, we won't see the actual impact of his tenure on the products that Intel releases for another couple of years, due to the time that it takes to lead a product to market in this space. Okay, so why did he leave? Well, we weren't given an official reason, but given that his departure was effective immediately, the consensus among analysts is that he was pushed out. Those same analysts say that it's more likely to be a signal to investors that Intel wants to turn things around than an actual shift in strategy, given that Intel hasn't appointed a new CEO. Okay, so what's next? Well, they're still searching for a replacement for Pat Gelsinger, so the actual long-term strategy is still up in the air until that new person comes in. But Intel is not completely over yet. They still have a chance to catch up. Their upcoming 18A process node is rumored to be on par with what TSMC can produce. With Pat leaving, Intel's future does look more uncertain than ever. But despite that, they still have a lot of very talented engineers, and Intel isn't going down without a fight. But I think that's all we have for this breaking news updates. So to follow along with how things go, make sure you subscribe to TechAsia, and until next time, take care.